Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, her website taxpayer.com. Welcome back to the show, Kris.
Thank you.
Kris, Vancouver continues to pay, I believe, the highest gasoline prices in North America, despite at one point negative oil prices being put out there for trade. How come we're still paying so much for gasoline?
Well, it's a combination of things, of course. Some of us still hopefully are able to get to and from work, depending on our line of work, and so that means there's still some supply and demand for that gasoline and that diesel, so that will determine price, but it's taxes. Taxes are a huge, huge reason why we pay some of the highest gas prices around, and we just finished putting out our annual Gas Tax Honesty Day report. It's something that we've been doing for 22 years as a group, and we do it because we think that drivers should know exactly what the tax breakdown cost is and what they're paying at the pump. And this year, Vancouver has the highest gas taxes in Canada. On average, it is 51 cents per liter in Vancouver. Victoria, it's about 44 cents per liter. And in the rest of British Columbia, it's about 38 cents per liter. And again, Vancouver is top of the class when it comes to gasoline taxes. One of the big reasons for that is, of course, we have the highest carbon tax in all of Canada. That's 8.9 cents per liter. And we have the TransLink tax in Metro Vancouver. That's 18.5 cents for every liter of gasoline. So, people are still paying an awful lot in gas taxes, even though the pump prices come down considerably from this time last year.
We have the Transit Authority in Vancouver, TransLink, claiming that they're facing bankruptcy or would have to close down because they're not making any tax revenue from the gasoline because fewer people are driving. Do you find an irony to that?
There really is. So there's all these folks typically who are always telling people to ditch their private cars and to go on transit. Well, it's the private drivers in their vehicles who are largely paying the freight for transit. And here we are with the TransLink tax, 18.5 cents per liter. So this is one of their conundrums. They want everybody supposedly living a SkyTrain stop away from their work. How we would all do that, I don't know. But somebody has to pay for it. And so they're going to have to really do some soul searching, crack open all of their books, do it top down, and figure out exactly what is essential. Find out what's essential for their mass transit system in Metro Vancouver, because you clearly need one, but they're going to have to cut a whole bunch of other things. They're going to have to find a way of making this work once we come out of this pandemic. We know, and we're trying to be very patient, we know that things are up in the air right now. Things are going to be dripping in red ink, but once this smoke clears, they're going to have to make some serious structural changes.
Well, didn't they stop collecting fares on Vancouver area buses?
Yeah. They stopped collecting fares in some routes. As far as I've been told, I've been called a few times. They've laid off some drivers. Apparently, they've laid off some security, depending on the flow of traffic on the transit systems. So everything's in flux. So we know that they're going to be bleeding money. We also know that there's much less demand for it now. But when and if demand picks up again, they're going to have to figure out a way to pay those bills. And so that's why they're going to have to get creative. Maybe it's time for them to figure out ways of building in their densification with their big, pretty condo towers, for example, and have those condo towers, as a value added, pay for some of these rapid transit systems. You don't always have to have it 100% funded by taxpayers.
Well, in New Westminster, the SkyTrain has several high-rise towers, residential towers built right over top of the station. Why isn't it like that all along the SkyTrain line?
That's a great question, and as far as we can tell, it kind of goes through translation and different interpretations. Places like Hong Kong do things like this. So they'll have these kind of private-public partnerships where they'll go into things like rapid transit, and housing and transit goes together like peanut butter and jam, of course, in a dense urban area. And they'll say, if you can visualize it, they'll build a great big fancy condo tower that everybody wants to live in because it's convenient and it's got lots of nice things like pools and gyms. And then out of those condo fees, if you can imagine it, it flows down into a rapid transit rail line that basically runs right through it or right next to the building. Voila! The money goes to actually pay for the transit instead of coming out of, say, drivers' pockets or people with homes or things like that.
Of course, they don't have it right now, but North Vancouver suffers from gridlock during the rush hours. They only have 2 bridges to get from the North Shore over to the mainland. Back in either the late 80s, early 90s, the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund proposed building a rapid transit tunnel from Main Street in Vancouver over to Lonsdale Quay, and that was rejected.
Oh, wow.
And their plan was they would make 8% a year, which is a good return on a pension fund. The excess soil would be used to build islands in Cole Harbour where you could build new condo towers to help fund this project. That would still be just as viable today. It's not going to ruin people's views. You're going to be next to Stanley Park, where everybody would love to be. And yet you don't hear any of that revived again. Again, ways that you can expand the system that pays for itself and would help pay for people to build it.
And it doesn't soak taxpayers. We're all for those sort of explorations. If you're able to innovate with people's money privately and of their own free will and not constantly soak the average taxpayer, that sounds pretty smart.
Mm-hmm. We'll have more with Kris Sims when we come back.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, there isn't a government in the world that doesn't love bureaucracy, but wouldn't cutting red tape be the most necessary thing right now to get our restaurants, pubs, nail salons, hairdressers back to work? Let restaurants perhaps build patios out into an unused street and then worry about the permitting and all that other stuff that goes with it? Because I think 98% of us are pretty aware of what needs to be done when you have a virus around.
Absolutely. So this is one of the major factors that we've been looking into at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. What about red tape? What about all of these strange regulations that a lot of people may not ever have heard of, but that business owners, especially business owners like restaurant owners, they know way too well. So as we rebuild and reopen, anything the government can do to slacken and get rid of some of these regulations for the benefit of these businesses, they need to do it. So perfect example, like you said, expand the patios. Have it so that you're able to build into the street that isn't being used or take over a part of a sidewalk that isn't being used, something like that. Also the delivery of of alcohol with your food delivery, that you can get that dropped off at your door now with your hot food, your hot meal from your favorite restaurant that's licensed, and you can get beer or wine, booze delivered with it. That's great. Same thing with takeout. The fact that you can pick it up as a hot meal from their doorstep at the restaurant and take away your beer and wine or whatever to take it with your meal, that is making a huge difference in the bottom line of a lot of restaurants. And so we want to see regulations like that stay. We want to make sure that all of these things where they're easing up, we want that to become permanent. And actually a very good place to go to find an entire list that people have been keeping of all the red tape that's been cut. It's a brand new think tank in Canada. It's called secondstreet.org, and they're basically dedicated to telling the real stories of Canadians behind stats. And what they've done is they've compiled a running list. They add to it every day, it seems, of what's been cut as far as regulations and red tape goes across Canada. It's really fascinating. It's a way of really making smaller the bureaucracy and freeing up human enterprise and business so that people can get booming again. I actually spoke with a gentleman in Prince Edward Island who runs his own pub there, and just making this one change, the fact that they could allow takeout with alcohol drinks, they weren't doing delivery yet, the fact that they could do that helped him bring staff back on. He had laid them off, but that one change made all the difference. He was able to rehire his people.
And I'm looking at several scenic areas just in the lower mainland of Vancouver, New Westminster, along the waterfront, Fort Langley, where restaurants would have no problem using neighboring park space or public walkways to expand out. Because as we know, fresh air, it makes it a lot safer to be around people. But by the time the bureaucrats approve it, we're going to be back in the middle of winter.
Yes, exactly. So that's why the same thing that we were arguing with the CERB. Say yes now, work out the details later. Because right now, restaurants and businesses are hemorrhaging. They're in serious trouble. So they need to get all of that tourniqueted. They need to be able to stop the bleeding, and they need to start regaining their strength. So as far as it, doesn't obviously fly in the face of safety, let's use common sense, say yes. Let them do it, and then go back and figure all the extra details out later. But for goodness sake, if you can say yes, please do. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have seen pictures circulating online. It was a place in Europe that had their own little versions. They had almost little tiny greenhouses where people were sitting in their tables, mostly still open air, but it allowed people to remain socially distant from each other while still seeing each other, and it was protecting the servers, too. Just do that stuff, please. Don't wait for government to do it. Don't have to wait for government to allow it either. Just let them do it as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, and then build it up after.
Well, and also in downtown Vancouver, we have so many boarded up buildings. Why not let a neighboring restaurant expand down the sidewalk, not just in front of their place?
Sure. That's the thing. And don't gum it up for months on end with red tape. Just allow them to do it and then inspect it, make sure it's obviously safe, but let them do it. Same sort of thing, for example, we heard from a lady who had a virtual doctor's appointment. All she had to do is to get something very simple checked out, apparently, and to get a prescription. She went online, she connected with her doctor, they did a virtual checkup. She could do it from the comfort of her home. She didn't have to bring her toddler into a packed waiting room, possibly full of sick people. She said it was one of the best doctor experiences she's ever had. Hey, so long as those doctors can still get paid and people get the prescriptions they need, make that more of the norm.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Cypress Development Corp. is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp. trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, you are concerned about conditions being attached to some of the aid that the Trudeau government is offering. What are the conditions? What kind of aid is it? And why are you concerned?
We're concerned because what we're hearing is that apparently some of these small businesses that are applying for relief to the federal government because they were shut down because of the COVID-19 pandemic, when they're now going to apply for relief, according to the Prime Minister, he apparently feels that it's okay to make sure that they agree with the federal government's fight against climate change, or to make sure that they're somehow environmentally friendly based on their own, standards and opinions. And this really smacks of strings attached. This is a really ideological area. People are wandering down here. So whatever business it is, so if you sell, pots of paint or lumber or restaurants, you name it, no matter what business it is, if you have been shut down by this and you apply for it, you should be able to get it on your own merit without having to pass kind of an ideological purity test. And to put these ideological strings on it from the government is just unfair. Now, really, they could start holding these businesses hostage. So we've shut you down. You're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to have any money coming through the door. You're not allowed to have any customers. And we'll only bail you out and try to keep you alive, not rolling in it, but alive, if you agree to our, terms about climate change or pick your topic. That's fundamentally unfair. Just imagine if the Harper government were still in power and this all happened again and they shut down the businesses and they said, okay, we'll bail you out and let you survive, but only if you completely agree with our foreign affairs agenda or our fight against ISIS or our support for the oil sands. How would your local little natural food store that sells books about communism and socialism and modern art, how would they feel about that? Would they want to agree with everything Harper was saying? That would be just as unfair. And so that's what we're saying, you guys. If you're offering help to places that you've shut down, you got to be fair about this.
And of course, people are allowed, apparently, under the Constitution to hold opinions.
Yeah.
Here, you might be punished for having an opinion that you think perhaps government doesn't play a role in how your business is run.
Yes, exactly. And so this is my federal colleague, Aaron Woodrick. He said, this is like somebody shoving you overboard into a raging river and you picking up a life ring and saying, oh, help, help, I'm drowning. Okay, I'm only going to throw this to you if you let me marry your sister. It's like, what? That's not fair. That doesn't make any sense. There shouldn't be these weird conditions applied to it. These businesses, we don't care which ones they are, if they're shut down through no fault of their own, it's basically like a natural disaster. If the government shuts them down, and now the government is offering help, that should be a pretty clear A to B.
It seems to me there's some kind of built-in prejudice here, or are they next going to insist that you contribute money to the Liberal Party?
Gosh, no, let's hope we don't go down that road. Could you just imagine? No, right now it seems to be ideological rather than partisan, so you have to think the way they think, so to speak, but I haven't heard yet if it actually goes that far.
Well, we've heard there's been arguments in the Trudeau cabinet between ministers that some say the oil patch should be allowed to die and tens of thousands of Albertans thrown on unemployment permanently.
Yes.
And a handful saying that, well, okay, we'll throw them a bone.
Yes, we are hearing that too. Some of those rumors are pretty bad. And hearing things like Elizabeth May proclaiming that oil is dead, which is one of the strangest things if you look at the global economy and how much we depend on it. We don't know how folks like this can come up with these ideas. But again, even if a business wanted to, make books that said oil is dead and they were shut down by the government because of COVID and they applied for aid, they should still get it. It shouldn't be based on their opinions and their ideology.
I always wonder, how does Elizabeth May get from Saanich in the islands on the west coast of BC to Ottawa? Does she bike? Does she walk? Does she take a dog sled? Does she ride a horse?
She'd have to paddle a canoe first, right? Because she'd have to get across the Georgia Strait. She must have awesome arm muscles. All joking aside, yeah, she'll say things like oil is dead. And other Green Party people will say very similar things, or Greenpeace will say we need to keep it in the ground now, not, work on it, make sure it's as clean as possible, and eventually transition someday down the future. No. Keep it in the ground now. Well, they're saying this while they're rappelling from nylon ropes, wearing plastic helmets and hard hats. It's bizarre.
Kris, anything else you'd like to add to today's show?
I just really want to encourage everybody right now. I know it's really tough. I get emails and phone calls from people who don't know if their businesses will ever open again. In some cases, they've dedicated their entire lives to them. That's hard to hear. So I just want to encourage everybody, keep your chin up, and the main thing you can do is try to keep a very open conversation with your local MLAs and your MPs, no matter which party they are. They're elected to do their jobs is to represent you. So keep in touch with your local town councilor, find out what your mayor's up to, stay in touch with your MLA and your MP. If you need help, you keep banging on that phone and sending those emails. And that way, they know you need help, and it also makes them more transparent. It makes them more responsive. And again, across party lines. It's our responsibility as active citizens to keep tabs on these folks.
Kris, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you.
My guest has been Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Her website, taxpayer.com. Kris, is there a way for people to contact you personally?
Absolutely. They can always send me an email. My email is posted right on our website, but I'll give it to you here. It's ksims, K-S-I-M-S, @taxpayer.com.
And if you have any questions for Kris or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. We're also on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.